With the rise of YouTube and Instagram and Meta, it has become harder and harder for conservatives to really say the things that they believe in. More and more, it seems that big tech is able to censor anybody they want. The response to this has been independent media outlets making a name for themselves, whether it be Daily Wire, Steven Crowder, Timcast, Joe Rogan, and many others. All of them have one thing in common. They are against big tech. Today we're going to talk about the drama, including Steven Crowder, where he calls out the Daily Wire for being in the pocket of big tech. Is there any credence to this argument? What was Daily Wire's response? And what is my personal role in this? Let's jump into it. Man, oh man, what a mess. If you've been on the internet at all, if you've been on Twitter, if you even remotely follow politics, you will see that there is a feud happening right now between two of the biggest names in all of conservatism, and that being the Daily Wire and Steven Crowder, who runs the show Louder with Crowder. Now, before I get into exactly what happened, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about who each of these people are. Approximately in 2015, 2014, more and more voices were coming onto the scene when it comes to political commentary. Some of those voices include people like Milo Yiannopoulos, Gavin McInnes, Ben Shapiro, and of course, Steven Crowder. They were kind of the beginning of this new movement of independent media that would be able to tell you the truth and go viral with it, and there wasn't much that big tech could do about it. So recently, Steven Crowder posts on his YouTube that after leaving his latest contract, he's been shopping around, and he pulls out an anonymous contract later to find out that it's from the Daily Wire, and begins to tell us about why this contract is not fair. Mind you, if you look up Steven Crowder, he has almost 6 million YouTube followers. This guy is by no stretch a small player. He's probably one of the biggest voices in conservative media, if not the biggest. And what he's accusing them of is pretty much giving them bad faith negotiations, right? Pretty much saying this is a number. The number was 50 million for 5 years. Now, included in that cost was going to be the production cost, is going to be the cost of the payroll that Steven Crowder would pay. It would, and in exchange for that cost, he would no longer have access to his subscribers, but the subscribers would go to Daily Wire, and he wouldn't be able to monetize his merch. He wouldn't be able to monetize any of the other avenues. Those monetization streams would go to Daily Wire. Crowder was so insulted by this that he posted a video and then later released a video kind of recording a conversation with one of the co-founders of the Daily Wire, which is Jeremy Boring. Now, I want to explain why all this is important and why I'm even talking about it on my channel. Like, first of all, I deal with cultural things, but I deal with political things and religious things. And I think where we are in human history right now, with the age of information, it's important to understand what is happening and who the players are that are actually giving contracts to people in order to be our thought leaders, to be our news tellers, to be our reporters and our journalists. People like the Daily Wire have taken up the model of we want to infiltrate and be part of the media conglomerate and change things from the inside. And from its foundation, Steven Crowder has been the exact opposite. He says, I want to go head on with these big companies and I want to fight against them. And so what we're seeing here is not a fight of ideology, because they very much believe similar things when it comes to the way the world works and the origins of humanity and all these things. Where they differentiate is on strategy. In my opinion, it seems like Crowder really trusted Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro. It looks like they had a very close relationship, and because of that, didn't expect this kind of standard cookie cutter negotiation process to happen in the same way. And I think he felt slighted by that, and he felt like he wasn't being recognized as anything more than just talent, because let's face it, the Daily Wire puts out talent, and they sign talent like a basketball team. They make a star, they make a brand around them, they take somebody talented and they make them famous. But on the exit of that fame, you don't get to keep your fan base as far as like your membership subscriptions. You don't get to keep the content that you made while you were there. None of those things belong to you. Your merch doesn't belong to you. None of these things belong to you. For somebody like Crowder to sign a deal with Daily Wire just doesn't make sense. One of the points that Crowder brings up, which is where I kind of resonate with him most, is that if this was the deal that they were giving him, imagine what the deals are that they're offering younger creators and people that are upcoming in this industry. Now, I think this is important because as we're here on Christian YouTube or whatever you want to call it, there's going to be things like that come up. Right now, there's still kind of the old guard with, with like, Hillsong Television and all these kind of old channels that have just made their transition onto YouTube. But eventually there's going to be a Christian YouTuber, Christian media infrastructure. And we have to look at these things to see where the kinks are and see how we can best conduct business, knowing that we're all ideologically aligned and want the same thing ultimately. So I think it's important to pay attention to this discussion because you're seeing it with big boy numbers. You're seeing it with people who are really playing the game at a high level. And I think it's informative. So let's watch some clips and we'll dive into it. This is a clip of where it all started. The background on this is pretty much that Daily Wire seemingly months ago gave Crowder an initial talk or initial document, kind of just laying out initial stipulations on how they might be able to get into business.
Because, look, I've always tried to be a happy warrior, and I want to go back to that. I haven't been happy for a while. To be really, I haven't been happy for a while because when you know what goes on behind these scenes and you see how many people are complicit, it creates an air of hopelessness. It really does. Where you think the people who are supposed to be linking arms and fighting with you, fighting for you, want to punish you. So here's the worst part. Do not, kids, under any circumstances, sign a contract with people who claim to be conservative, but will penalize you 25% for any demonetization or sponsor boycott. Look, let me read this to you. If any of the major platforms, oh no, sorry, that's the second one. Let me go back to the first one. There's another 20%. It's 45% to get a content strike. Let's start with the demonetization. If blank is boycotted or dropped by more than 50% of the advertising partners, the company is not able to replace them within 90 days, the fee will be reduced by 25%.
So this matters because Crowder is one of the most censored people on YouTube, one of the most censored people probably on the internet that are still able to get on the internet. Like we were talking about in the beginning, people like Milo and Gavin McInnes and all of these people have been removed totally from most parts of the internet. And so Crowder has managed to maintain somewhat his status, but he's by no means not at risk of being censored. Even the Daily Wire themselves get censored occasionally. His point here is that he is looking at a contract from a close friend that is saying that he will be penalized if they are censored or if the site, if his content gets flagged or demonetized, which, by the way, will happen. And so knowing that it will happen because he's pretty much the first person to have that done to him, understanding that it shouldn't have been on the contract to begin with is his plea. Right now, this is something emblematic of the whole kind of media industry that happens. And I have my own personal experiences in this area to a limited extent, definitely not on this level. But I will say this. It is 100% true what Crowder is saying, that most of these companies want to buy and own your IP, your intellectual property. They want to have the content that you make, your creativity, your thoughts, your words that you've expressed. They want to own that. And it's not nefarious because they're companies. They need to make money. They need to continue to bring in revenue, of course. But what happens is when you have a player like Crowder that's walking into these things, he doesn't need to sign that. And he could have just kept his mouth shut about it. And where I disagree with him is in how he dealt with it after this. But it seems to me that he is trying to break something in the system that needs to be broken, but nobody's brave enough to do. And that thing is the fact that young creators, people who are developing their own platforms and their own audiences, then go to these bigger companies and they lock them into these deals. It's very much like an artist with a music label, and they sign these 360 deals. They can monetize your merch. They have your subscribers. They own your videos. They have everything on hold for you. And when that contract expires, you don't get any of it back. That's crazy, right? And if you're not Steven Crowder, you're walking into that and they're putting millions of dollars in your face. You're fine with it. But then what happens is you leave and yes, you're 100% more popular. You are now famous. You are now Daily Wire famous, but you don't have a paid subscription. You don't have the content that you spent however long your contract was working on. You don't have that anymore. That's not yours. You can go and do another show, but you don't own any of that. And I'm not saying that that's like a bad model in the sense of evil, but I do think that is a model that needs to be restructured because as we grow on the internet, as things change on the internet, you're going to start to see people find new solutions to this. You're going to start to see people who are going to say, okay, I'm going to help you build your own membership. I'm going to help you build your own paywall, help you build your own infrastructure, and I'll take X percent of it. And you're more like an agent or a facilitator than you actually are somebody's boss, right? And that person is not your employee, but more so a partner in the business that you are creating that works up a bigger network. I don't know how that solution would look, but I am saying what Daily Wire is doing and what he has done with Crowder is cookie cutter. It's standard. It's been done before, and it's how things work. But I think he expected something different. And I think where he messed up is in the reaction to this, which we're going to look at now.
Few pieces of content that we ask you to make that year. And then just as reset, the fee reduces each calendar year. So, every year you kind of start over fresh. That brings us to 13, reduction of fee from lost revenue or boycotts. Again, this is one of the points that Stephen really focused on. He says we're enforcers for big tech, that we're doing big tech bidding, that we're punishing content creators if they run afoul of big tech. And first of all, that's just personally incredibly offensive. It's incredibly offensive to have your friend and ally in 10 years of fighting this fight alongside one another, coming up together, say that you're not sufficiently conservative, say that you're I think he said in the video that we're worse than the left, that we're doing.
They're doing good business. They are doing proper business. They are doing things by the book. 100%, nobody is doubting that. The difference is that they have a model where they are a machine and they want to be successful for generations. They want to build a new Disney. They want to build a new McDonald's. They want to be the infrastructure that is parallel to the other infrastructure. Whereas Crowder doesn't fit in that model. He runs on his own. He does his own production. He hires his own people. He comes up with his own ideas. Like, he doesn't really need the creative resources of the Daily Wire. Maybe the distribution, maybe the marketing, definitely some of the money, but there's plenty of money to be made from Crowder on his own and the infrastructure that he already has. Now, the interesting part about this is this response from the Daily Wire is kind of two-sided. It's one, I'm really, really hurt that my friend would do this to me. And two, we were just doing good business. And it was just business. And so it's like both of these things. I know if you've seen Crowder's content, if you know anything about him, you know that he takes things very, very personally. And he is on a crusade. He is concerned with ideology first. He doesn't really love the business. He loves the work. He loves the journalism. He loves the telling the jokes, telling the news, breaking stories. That's what he loves. He does not love business. He's not a businessman. He's a businessman by proxy because of what he has to do in order to get his content out. And I know a lot of people that are very similar to that in this space, and that's why they choose to remain isolated from all of these big machines, like Daily Wire, Turning Point, etc. And I resonate with that. A lot of people are just making the point of like, oh, the Daily Wire was not being unfair. And I agree. They weren't being bad businessmen, but they were being kind of numb friends, not taking into account how the negotiation process would really work between them. It shouldn't look formal. It shouldn't look professional. If they're close friends, the negotiation process should have been one of them at the other's house drinking a beer in the person's living room with the kids around saying like, you know what, we need to do something. Like, that's what you would expect from a friend. And so I get where people are coming from saying that the Daily Wire is in the right. This is what I disagree with Crowder on here.
They don't get deals that...
They can be wage slaves for a little bit. Come over and make a salary and grow their brand.
They can be wage slaves for a little bit, make a salary and grow their brand.
For a little bit.
God bless the talk boy. Those things are worth like $5,000 now. It's an expensive gag. So didn't want to have to do this, but Daily Wire outed themselves very, very quickly. And sure enough, if you see all of the people who work there, some of whom I have relationships with, they immediately tried to make this all about money. Here's the problem. There are a few problems, and I'll go through with some receipts. Everything that was said about negotiations, how they transpired, beyond the numerical value, which is true and I'll get to, everything else is untrue. I don't really want to get into that. It's completely irrelevant. Here's why. Go back to the 20-something minute video, 30-minute video. You've never heard me say or write anywhere online that these offers weren't paying enough money.
Now, I think this, recording his friend on a personal phone call, was not a good look. It was not right. I don't think that he should have done this. I think that there are instances where you could do this, and I personally know of some instances where phone recordings were needed and should have been done and they weren't, and people that you thought you trusted, so you never know, when in doubt, just kind of go err on the side of recording just in case and never releasing. I wouldn't even have been mad if he recorded it but didn't release it. This is really emblematic of the conservative movement, because what Daily Wire is doing is building a structure where you have to climb up the corporate ladder in order to espouse your conservative views. What Crowder is trying to do is make the barrier to entry lower, as low as possible. Anybody can share their views, and they're two polar opposite models. And both of them have the ability to monetize, but only one of them is all about the brand, and that's the Daily Wire. Crowder, yes, he's got an ego. He's a superstar, can be a diva, very talented, funny guy. There's a lot of stuff going on with him. But he is offering a solution for the small creator, for the person that doesn't have the resources and the talents and the backing of the Daily Wire, which there's some funky things about the backing of Daily Wire also. But Crowder is the one that's standing for that. And I think this hurt his case. Him recording Jeremy personally in a personal phone call where they were talking about family and stuff really hurt his case, and I don't think that it was a good thing to do. I think it's something that he should apologize for, but only that. Only that. I don't think he should apologize for anything else, because these are conversations that need to be had. And so everybody has responded to this already. Everybody's got their opinion on it. People are swayed back and forth. I'm not really prone to pick sides, although I resonate with the mission of Crowder more. I respect and I honor, and I am really inspired by the things that Daily Wire has accomplished. The problem is that there are more creators like Crowder than there are like Daily Wire. And I think that's something to be conscious of as you formulate your opinion about this. Which camp do you fit in? Do you want to have a salary and not have any ownership of your own content when you end your contract? Or do you want to build something lasting and maybe work with a brand that will help you build something lasting? Take a fee, but it'll still be yours and you'll still have the brand that you built. I see the problem Crowder's pointing out crystal clear, and I see why the Daily Wire would be upset. But you can't say that you guys are super close friends, but then this is just business. You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. And so that's my main issue. My main issue with Crowder is that he shouldn't have recorded his close friend. And I'm going to leave that there. Let me know what you think. I know I went on for a long time, but this is something that I think is important to talk about and really holds a lot of weight for the way business is going to be conducted online in the future. And so let me know your thoughts. Drop it in the comments. I know like 60% of you are not subscribed, so subscribe right now, and I'll see you later. Peace.